parent should ever have to fear for their sons and daughters when they kiss them goodbye in the morning.
President Trump responds as the nation mourns all those killed in Wednesday's school shooting that left 17 people dead and many others injured in Parkland, Florida. The accused shooter at the center of this tragedy made his first court appearance today. Good evening. I'm Russ Spencer.
And I'm Sine Simpson. The entire hearing lasted about 3 minutes, and 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz faces 17 counts of premeditated murder. He's being held without bond. Now, Cruz will be allowed to request a bond hearing at a later date. Officials say Cruz was once a student at that school, but he'd been expelled. The only comment Cruz made during today's hearing was to confirm his name.
Now, the Broward County Police Department gave an update this afternoon on the events leading up to Cruz's arrest. He was arrested in Coral Springs, Florida, which is not far from Parkland. Coconut Creek police officer Michael Leonard was the first officer to make contact with Cruz. And officials also want to make sure that first responders are doing okay mentally after such a tragedy. Coral Springs Fire Chief Frank BABINEC says resources will be provided to the first responders to help them deal with the aftermath of what they saw at that high school.
Our first responders can never unsee what they saw yesterday, so we will work with them to make sure they get the resources they need to get through this as part of the community.
At least 14 people are still recovering from injuries they suffered during the massacre.
Well, President Trump ordered flags at the White House and public grounds to fly at half-staff, honoring the victims of the deadly shooting. The president made the proclamation this morning. All public buildings and grounds will fly the flag at half-mast until sunset on February 19th. Well, President Trump has also spoken out on the tragic school shooting, and lawmakers from all over the country have weighed in.
The president pledges to make schools safer and to tackle the issue of mental health in particular. He also took a moment to speak directly to America's children.
I want to speak now directly to America's children, especially those who feel lost, alone, confused, or even scared. I want you to know that you are never alone and you never will be.
Some lawmakers have criticized the president because during his address to the nation, he did not specifically mention gun control.
Well, officials say that Cruz ran into the building with an AR-15 and started shooting as students ran out. Florida's Attorney General says she's certain prosecutors will seek the death penalty.
We have team coverage of the deadly shooting tonight. Fox 5 anchor Tom Haynes joins us now live in Parkland, Florida, with more details on the suspect and how this has really affected the entire community. Tom?
Russ and Sine, so many troubling stories coming out of the events that happened here yesterday at the high school behind me, only about 1,000 yards behind us. We've traveled here to Parkland, Florida, which is on the Broward County, Palm Beach County line out in western Broward County, the affluent community that surrounds this school. The sun is setting now, but the nerves and the emotions are still raw, and people here are still grieving what happened here yesterday, and safe to say they're still in shock. It's still a very active crime scene investigation. The whole area around us is taped off by police. You can't get anywhere near this school because investigators are still combing through it, investigating the events that led up to yesterday's deadly shooting in which 17 people were killed. Police say at the hands of 19-year-old Nicholas Cruz. There are still helicopters in the air, presumably the local news stations here in South Florida, as well as the Broward Sheriff's Office patrolling the area. We're learning so much more about the suspect who made his first court appearance today and his background. We learned that a leader of a white nationalist group called the Republic of Florida confirmed today that Cruz was a member of his organization and had participated in exercises in Tennessee, we understand. Police say Nicholas Cruz's mother had passed away last year and that he had been expelled from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School here behind me last year as well, because of an altercation that he got in with another student. He moved in with a friend of the family, saying he was unhappy with his living situation. Their lawyer says that Cruz was working at a dollar store and going to adult education classes. According to the family, they knew Cruz owned that AR-15 rifle that police say he used to assault the students and faculty behind me here. He had it locked in a cabinet, and students and neighbors say that Cruz was a troubled teen. Everybody that we spoke to here on the ground, Russ and Sine, told me that if they knew Cruz, they weren't surprised at what police say he carried out here yesterday, the actions that he's alleged to have carried out. They say that he threatened his peers. He talked about killing animals. He even posed with guns and bragged about target practice on social media. Officials say the 19-year-old legally purchased that semi-automatic weapon that he used in the attack about a year ago. I want to take you now inside Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School to show you what happened. The terrifying cell phone video showing the moments inside the classroom as officials cleared the active shooter scene. SWAT teams entered those classrooms and students were sitting on the floor, some of them huddled in closets, and we heard stories of tremendous heroics on the parts of some faculty members there. They were told to put their hands up and move out of that school. And that's when we learned that the Broward County Sheriff told us just a couple of moments ago that Nicholas Cruz, when he was inside that school, lay down his rifle after he allegedly pulled that fire alarm and walked out of the building with the students as to conceal his identity from police. We now know he was later found in a neighborhood nearby where I'm standing now. It's been an extraordinary day here in Parkland, Florida. You see large packs of students moving through this area. This is a gigantic school, which most of the kids from this area attend. So they're all moving around here, around the city here together. And we met some of them at a prayer service today at a church where not only students but clergy members and parents came together to mourn the horrific act of what happened yesterday.
It's hard because it hits so close to home. You hear about these things, you know, year after year from Columbine on down, and now you get it so close to home. All we can do is just watch with them, talk to them about what happened, talk to them, you know, let them know that this is not every day, but I don't know, and then you just pray.
And so those were the sentiments and the feelings of some students and parents that we spoke to earlier today at that prayer vigil. Some clergy were also on hand there. In an extraordinary moment, Russ and Sine, somebody came up to me, someone who's here covering this story for the folks back in Atlanta, took my hand and offered to pray with me. So the emotions, the spirituality, things happening in this community are still very profound on so many levels as this investigation continues and these students continue to come to grips with the events that took place here yesterday. Russ and Sine.
The violence has to stop. We cannot lose another child in this country to violence in a school.
Well, Florida Governor Rick Scott spoke more about the tragedy today, saying that something needs to be done about violence in schools all across the country.
Yeah, the tragedy in Florida has parents all across the country worried about the safety of their own children, of course.
Fox 5's Angelique Proctor spoke with officials from districts across Metro Atlanta to find out how exactly they're keeping your kids safe on campus. She joins us now live. And Angelique, what have they told you?
Well, Sine, I talked to representatives from Gwinnett County Schools, from Douglas County Schools, and here at the Atlanta Public School District, and they all say safety is their top priority. They are using lots of resources, including the school resource officers, mounted cameras, and yes, those active shooter drills that we hear so much about to keep our students safe.
I don't need any children going down that hall.
It was panic in Douglas County back in August of 2017. Deputies responded to an active shooter call at Lithia Springs High School. They later learned math teacher Jonathan Freeman shot himself and never intended to harm any students. It was a real-life response that better prepares school resource officers, staff, and even students for an authentic emergency.
This is something that we literally think about every day when we go to work, especially our school resource officers. First responder bag for active shootings.
Active shooter training is done 3 or 4 times a year at the schools. All 16 armed school resource officers in Douglas County have an active shooter response kit with them and carry out shooting drills on a regular basis.
The training is very intense. You know, it is as real a scenario as you can get to the real thing.
Doors are always locked at the county's 19 elementary schools. A visitor has to state their business into a camera before being buzzed inside. There are numerous other security procedures in place that the sergeant doesn't want to detail for fear of compromising their readiness. Readiness is on the mind of the Atlanta Public Schools Executive Director of Safety and Security. She plans to institute more surprise drills following Parkland to make sure her staff is ready.
Let's get back out and ensure that we are doing those impromptu drills so that we know that the schools are ready when the it comes.
Now, Dr. Hall says parents have a role in all of this, too. She says you should be talking to your kids every day, asking them how their day went and if they encountered anything unusual, and then make sure that information gets back to the right people. Reporting live from downtown, Angelique Proctor, Fox 5 News.
All right, Angelique. Well, Nicholas Cruz used an AR-15 in yesterday's mass shooting. It's a gun that police say he purchased legally, but the same type of gun has been used in other mass shootings.
Yeah, the Las Vegas shooter used a modified version of it last year, and the gunman in a Texas church shooting used a variant as well. Tonight, Fox 5's Morse Diggs has a closer look at that particular rifle.
In Washington and elsewhere around the country, the debate over weaponry heats up whenever there's one of these mass shootings. I'm here at the Adventure Outdoors store in Smyrna. They say that when this happens, there's going to be a lot of misinformation about this particular rifle called the AR-15, starting with the fact that AR does not stand for assault rifle.
I don't pretend to know what gets into the mind of somebody who wants to go shoot up a school.
Gun expert Todd Whiddon could anticipate a call from me about a particular gun that has been used multiple times in mass shootings, including what just occurred in Florida. The AR-15 rifle is what police there say the gunman used. A capable shooter does have the ability to have faster follow-up shots, but Whiddon says the rifle is often mislabeled as an assault rifle.
An assault rifle is a fully automatic machine gun, if you will. We don't sell those. You know, civilians can't buy machine guns.
So it's not a SWAT weapon or a military machine. Instead, it's intended for sport.
It fires one round at a time. When you pull the trigger, one bullet fires. Pull the trigger again, another bullet fires.
At what age can you purchase an AR-15?
In the state of Georgia, AR-15 is considered a long gun, a rifle, and to purchase a rifle in the state of Georgia, you have to be 18 years old.
Does an AR-15 purchase require a permit?
Do not need a permit to purchase a rifle. All you have to do is pass a federal background check. The background checks are administered by the FBI, and that's a part of the checkout process. Okay. It takes about 5 minutes.
How many rounds can be fired from one magazine?
We sell 30-round magazines here. You could buy higher capacity magazines if you want. I've seen them as high as 200 rounds.
The standard bullet, 22 caliber.
Coyote hunters love .223. Some hog hunters will hunt with a .223. That's a great small game caliber.
And despite the gun controversy, Whiddon tells me this particular weapon remains very popular. From Cobb County, I'm Morse Diggs, Fox 5 News.
Traders at the New York Stock Exchange paused before trading this morning to honor the victims of the Florida school shooting. Following a brief silence, the market was back up and running as usual.
When that gunman, that 20-year-old young man, came into that school with that AK-47 and over 500 rounds of ammo on his back, you're right. It was life or death for us.
Coming up, we talk with the woman who saved a local elementary school after a man armed with an assault rifle walked into the front office. Ahead, our very own Portia Bruner sits down with Antoinette Tuff for her take on the tragedy and how she feels that she was able to deal with this type of scary situation herself. We'll also continue our team coverage of the tragedy in the next half hour. We're going to check back in with Tom to get the very latest on the situation. Also, be sure to download the Fox 5 Atlanta News app. It is free for your mobile device. There you'll find up-to-the-minute alerts on the tragedy. Also, you can watch our newscast live if you're not too far from a TV.